Brakence's production is truly an anomaly that continues to baffle the producer community. And the main reason behind this is the insanely creative sound design techniques that he implements in his beats. But today I'm giving you guys a peek behind the curtain and revealing all of Brakence's sound design secrets. And this includes how he makes his insanely unique drum sounds, his granular percussion, and how to make granular keys to make otherworldly melodies. Now, before I get into the video itself, I want to mention that all of the techniques that I'm covering today were used when making my Fractals granular toolkit. And this kit contains over 280 completely custom drum sounds, granular percussion files like Granular Ambience, Granular Loops, Granular Percussion one-shots, as well as an Analog Lab 5 bank, which makes use of granular techniques we're going to be covering today, and a full Shaperbox preset bank. So if you don't want to spend 5 months like I did creating a ton of custom granular sounds from scratch, go ahead and check out the kit in the description down below. But yeah, self-promotion aside, let's get into the video. And before I go over any techniques, one thing I heavily recommend is taking notes or following along in your DAW as we go along the video. This is because there is a ton of information in this video, and you're not going to be able to digest it all just by watching it. So right now, I want you to open up your DAW and follow along as we go about the video, because it's going to be insanely beneficial for you. So with that being said, the first aspect of Brakence's sound design that I want to go over is going to be the drums. And for all of the drums sound design, the only plugin that you're going to need is going to be Serum. And the first aspect of the drums that I want to go over is going to be snares. So here's the snare that I'm going to be teaching you how to make. Oh my god. And here are the steps that you need to follow. Firstly, you're going to change oscillator A to a sine wave. So just click up here, go to analog, and then analog BD sine. Secondly, you're going to create an LFO, which is going to affect the pitch of your sine wave. So to do that, you're just going to take your LFO, take this middle point, move it all the way to the left, and then take this middle point right here and drag it down probably around like right there. After that, you're going to put it on envelope mode and disable BPM. Next, you're going to take the LFO itself, drag it, and put it onto the coarse pitch of oscillator A. After that, you're going to go into the matrix and make sure the type is just this one singular arrow, not the double arrow. And then you're going to want the coarse pitch amount to be somewhere right around here, but the beauty of sound design is that you could really just do whatever sounds good to you. As well as that, you're going to route that LFO to the level of oscillator A, put the level all the way down, and then increase the LFO modulation. The next thing you're going to want to do is enable your noise and route that same LFO to the level of the noise. And you're just going to want to do the same thing right there. Make sure the level is at 0 and increase the modulation. From there, we can go into the effects panel and throw on some distortion. My personal favorite for these kind of heavy EDM type snares is going to be diode distortion, but you can play around with it and see what sounds good to you. And then I just have the drive at around 3 o'clock. After that, you're going to throw down a filter with the reverb setting on it. And to get that, you'll just click on this, go to miscellaneous, and then go to the reverb. This is what's going to give your snare that metallic sound. And yet again, you're going to take that same LFO, route it to the cutoff of the filter, and then have the cutoff almost at 0, but not actually 0, and increase the modulation all the way. As well as that, you're going to want to make sure the resonance is at 0, and then you can increase the drive and the dampness at your discretion. And when making a kit, you're going to be able to get a ton of different snare sounds just by adjusting this cutoff. So let me give you an example. Oh my gosh, that one was dirty. Oh my. So without that filter, this is what our snare sounds like. Kind of cool, but with the filter, perfection. Aside from that, we do have quite a bit of post-processing. Sorry, I just took like 10 takes to say that. The first of which is going to be OTT, or some kind of compression of some sort. The second of which is going to be some kind of distortion plugin. I just have down Decapitator, but to be honest, Fruity Fast Distortion will work just fine. Next, you're going to need an EQ, just taking out those really low frequencies. And then you can also boost the mids to low mids if you want a little bit more of a punch in that sine wave. Next, you're going to want some kind of transient processor. I'm just using Transpire, which is a completely free plugin, so if you want it for yourself, go grab it. I heavily recommend it in terms of sound design. And all this is doing is increasing the attack of our snare, making it more punchy. After that, I just have down Fruity Wave Shaper to make our snare more beefy. And finally, a soft clipper to clip it at 0. So without any post-processing, this is what the snare sounds like. And with the post-processing, this is what the snare sounds like. So yeah, that's going to completely cover snares. And the next thing we're going to go over are going to be those hard-ass 808s. And the first step to that is going to be enabling oscillator A and putting the pitch down by 2 octaves. After that, we're going to create that same pitch LFO yet again by dragging it all the way to the left and dragging down that middle button, as well as enabling envelope and disabling BPM. And yet again, we're going to route it to the coarse pitch of our 808. And yet again, you're going to want to make sure the type is that 1 arrow, not the 2 arrows, and have the coarse pitch somewhere around the middle. Also, I just realized I didn't play the 808 that we're going to be going over, so this is what it sounds like. After that, you're going to enable your filter and have the cutoff somewhere at around 10 o'clock and then boost the drive up by a little bit. And next, this is kind of optional, but you can enable your noise and have it at a low level. This is just going to give your 808 some more high-end properties. After that, we can go into the effects panel and enable some diode distortion, yet again with the drive somewhere at around 3 o'clock. And then as far as post-processing goes, the only thing that I have down is isotope trash. If you don't have this plugin for yourself, I heavily recommend grabbing it, especially if you're big into sound design. And what I'll do is I'll just play my 808 and scroll through the presets until I find something that sounds good. So without any post-processing, this is what the 808 sounds like. And with post-processing, this is what it sounds like. Next, we're going to go into something very similar to 808s, and that's going to be bass plucks. And this is the pluck that I'm going to be breaking down. The first thing you'll do is enable oscillator A and then go into the spectral wavetables. These are going to give you some really cool, unique bass pluck sounds. After that, we're going to go through that same rigmarole as the 808. We're going to turn the pitch down by 2 octaves, make this same LFO, envelope mode, turn off BPM, route it to the coarse pitch, make sure the coarse pitch only has 1 arrow, and have it at somewhere around halfway for the amount. And then from there, we're going to adjust the envelope so that the attack is somewhere at around 1 millisecond. The sustain and hold are all the way down, and the decay is somewhere at around 500 milliseconds. From there, we can go into the effects panel and enable stomp box distortion. I like to use this for any kind of short 808s or bass plucks because it gives them a really nice punchy initial transient. And for this, I have the drive at about 10 o'clock with the mix at 100. And then as far as post-processing goes, you're going to want some kind of distortion plugin. Yet again, I'm just using Decapitator, but any distortion plugin will do really. As well as that, you're either going to want to put down R-Bass stereo, which I heavily recommend getting if you don't have it already, or you could just use an EQ and just boost the shit out of the low ends. But I find that R-Bass stereo kind of gives you a much cleaner sound in terms of low end. As well as that, yet again, I have down Transpire boosting the attack, and then an EQ boosting the lows and highs by a little bit. So without any post-processing, this is what the bass pluck sounds like. And with the post-processing, this is what it sounds like. And now that we've covered bass plucks, let's go over the next portion of the drums, which is going to be kicks. And here's the kick sample I'm going to be showing you how to make. Just a super dirty, punchy EDM kick. First thing you're going to want to do is change oscillator A to a sine wave. Yet again, just click on it, go to analog BD sine. Next, we're going to do that same old thing, put the pitch down by 2 octaves, create this pitch LFO, envelope mode, turn off BPM, route the LFO to the coarse pitch. Yet again, coarse pitch, only 1 arrow, and then around halfway for the amount. And then you're also going to want to adjust the envelope so that the hold and sustain are at 0, and the decay is somewhere at around 100 to 200 milliseconds. From there, we can go into the effects and throw down some type of distortion. My favorites are going to be tube and tape saturation for kicks, but depending on the sound that you want, you could browse all the other distortion presets. And then as well as that, we're going to do that same thing that we did for the snare, which is this filter reverb. So yet again, we're going to route our pitch LFO to the cutoff, have the cutoff somewhere at around 0, but not quite 0, resonance at 0, and then adjust the drive and dampness as you please. And yet again, when making a kit, by adjusting this cutoff, you can get a ton of different kick sounds. So that's all we have in terms of Serum, but for post-processing, we just have an EQ boosting the shit out of those low ends. And then you're also going to want to throw down some kind of saturator. I just have down FabFilter Saturn because I like that you can adjust the bands. So I just have super heavy tube saturation on the low end of that kick. And then as well as that, we have good old Transpire, yet again, boosting the attack of that kick. So without post-processing, this is what it sounds like. And with post-processing, this is what it sounds like. And now the last part of the drums that I want to go over is going to be the claps, but we're going to have to go over that after we go over granular percussion because those two tie in. So without any further ado, the next thing that we're going to be going over is making your own granular engines. And the plugin you're going to want to use for this is going to be Arturia Pigments. Now, you may not think you have this plugin, but if you have the Analog Lab 5 bundle, you do have this plugin. And if you don't have this plugin, yet again, I heavily recommend getting it because it is one of my favorite granular synthesis plugins out there. The versatility of this plugin is truly insane, and like, I get super giddy when making granular sounds, so like, I am truly in love with this plugin. So the first step for creating a granular percussion engine is going to be to change the engine type to sample. After that, you're going to go through all 6 of your samplers and change them to Foley samples with very high transients. So to do that, you'll just click on the sample name, go to Foley, and then browse these until you find ones that are very like clicky and clacky. From that, you're going to go over to map right here, and then set the sample map to random. This is going to make it so that when you play a note, it randomly shuffles through all of those samples. And then the next thing you're going to do from there is enable the granular section and just go crazy in terms of these settings. So you can go ahead and just copy what I have over here, but this top section up here affects the density, the shape, and the size of the grains. And then this entire bottom section randomizes certain parameters. So for example, the start time, if it's at 0, there's going to be 0 randomization of the start time. But if it's at 1, which is the highest setting, there's going to be extreme randomization of the start time. And I find you'll get some really cool sounds by just randomizing the shit out of this. And then yet again, I just realized I forgot to play what it sounds like. So this is what it sounds like. From there, you're going to go over to the effects section, and the only thing you'll really need is multiband compression. So I just have the amount right around 3 o'clock, and I just boost the mids and the highs by a bit. Now, you're going to find that your grains sound something like this. Just sounds like random Foley samples. But we're going to fix this and make it sound super glitchy with some post-processing. The first thing you'll throw down is going to be OTT with the depth at 100%, and then I also like to boost the highs by a little bit. The next thing you'll throw down yet again is going to be Transpire, boosting the attack. Afterwards, you're going to want some kind of vocoder plugin. Now, I just have down Vocodex, which is FL Studio's native vocoder, but I'm sure you could toy around with a bunch of different vocoders, but this one's free, so I just use this one. And then from there, you can mess around with a bunch of the parameters, so I like to mess around with the bandwidth multiplier, and the pitch shift. And then as well as that, you can add in some extra noise to make your grains sound more full. From there, you're going to want to throw down an EQ, getting rid of those low to low mid frequencies, because those are going to be very like resonant and tonal, and that's not exactly what we want in terms of percussion. After that, you're going to want to throw down Spectral Gate, which is like the secret sauce for granular percussion. And this plugin is 100% free, so I heavily recommend grabbing it. So I just have the cutoff amplitude at -3.8 decibels, the weak strong balance at around right here, and then the size of the sample at 128, which is the smallest size. And then these are optional, but you could throw down another OTT if you want. And then as well as that, you could throw down some kind of soft clipper. So yet again, without any effects, this is what the granular percussion sounds like. And with the effects, this is what it sounds like. Dirty. And then for making glitch percussion one-shots, you'll want the envelope looking something like this. And then if you want, you could also drag a randomizer onto the decay. This is going to randomize the length of the one-shots, so you'll have some short one-shots to play around with, and then some long one-shots to play around with as well. And then if you want just straight granular ambience, you'll just take the sustain and put it all the way up. So filthy. And then in terms of glitch percussion loops, you could literally just treat it as if it's like a normal hi-hat sample. So I'll just lay down like a quick 2-step just to show what it would sound like. So yeah, that's going to cover granular engines and granular percussion. And then the next thing that we're going to be covering is making claps, because the granular engines and the claps tie in together. So the first thing you're going to do is just craft a basic clap in Serum. So you'll disable the oscillator and enable the noise. And then from there, you're going to create this sawtooth LFO. In order to do that, you'll just drag this all the way to the left, double click and make some points, and then just like build these little teeth out. And then I like to do 3 or 4 teeth. So I'll do 4 for this one. And then for your last tooth, you'll just drag this last point just halfway down. From there, you'll enable envelope mode and turn off BPM, and then drag this LFO to the level of your noise. And then you'll have the level itself at 0, and then the modulation at 100. And then I also like to have the rate at around like 4 to 6 hertz, but you could play around with whatever sounds good to you. And then as far as effects within Serum go, you can just throw down some kind of distortion like tube or tape saturation. And then I just have the drive yet again at around 2 or 3 o'clock. And then post-processing for this is going to be relatively simple. I just have down some standard compression, as well as distortion yet again with decapitator, and an EQ taking out those lows, boosting the mids, and boosting the highs. So without post-processing, this is what the clap sounds like. And with post-processing, this is what the clap sounds like. From there, you're going to go into your channel rack and open a plugin called Layer. This is a native FL Studio plugin, so everybody who has FL Studio will have this. From there, you're going to highlight both your clap and your granular engine in the channel rack, and then set them as children in the Layer plugin. This is going to make it so that when you play a note on the Layer channel, it's going to play a note both on the clap and the granular engine. So with that being said, this is what both the clap and the granular engine sound like together. And now the final portion of Brakence's sound design that we're going to be covering is going to be Granular Keys. And this is going to follow a very similar formula to the granular percussion engine. So yet again, we're going to go over to the engine and change it to sample mode. And then from there, we're going to change all of these samples into something with a plucky initial transient. So So some good sections for these kind of sounds are going to be the bells and the mallets, the piano and keys, and then the plucked strings section. Then yet again, we're going to go over to the map section and set the sample map to random. And then we're going to enable the granular section and toy around with all of these parameters. Now, the one thing you will not toy around with is going to be the pitch. You want the pitch at 0 and only 0. Because if you increase the pitch, these are tonal sounds, so it's just going to sound all over the place in terms of tone. And some of my favorite effects to throw down for these kind of presets are going to be shimmer reverb, multiband compression, and stereo pan. So without any of those effects, this is what the granular keys sound like. And with those effects, this is what it sounds like. Just a little bit more like ethereal, so to speak. So now, just to tie together this entire tutorial, I want to show you what a beat sounds like making use of all of these sound design techniques. And yet again, every single sound you're about to hear is from my Fractals Granular Toolkit. So if you're interested in making granular Brakence type beats for yourself with ease, check it out in the description. It's truly one of my favorite kits that I've put out. So yeah, with that being said, this is what a beat sounds like making use of every technique we've covered today. Yeah, that is going to completely cover all of Brakence's sound design secrets. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions at all, throw them in the comments down below and I will do my best to answer them. Also, consider checking out my Patreon where I post the FLPs to all of my beats in all of my videos. And for this video, I'm going to be uploading all of the Serum and Pigments presets that I used. So you can go even further in depth and study the actual presets themselves. Also, consider subscribing as I post one tutorial a week and one sound kit a month. Other than that, it's going to be it.